Madera Youth here this evening. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to the coalition.
Good evening, welcome to the Candidates Forum 2018. Thank you all for coming. This event is sponsored by the Madera Chamber of Commerce, Madera Tribune, and the Madera Coalition for Community Justice. We would also like to thank the veterans of foreign wars for working with us on hosting the forum at this location. My name is Erica Vasquez, and I'm a member of the Madera Youth Leaders, a youth leadership development project of the Madera Coalition. With me is Lizeth Martinez, and JZ Rios and other members of our project are here and will help facilitate this event.
Just one quick reminder, you all know that voting in Madera County has been made easier. Ballots are now mailed to you. It can be returned in the mail, no postage required. Return at the ballot drop box or at the voting center. The ballot drop boxes are open 28 days before the election at the vote center. Is open 10 days before at either the government center or the John Wells Center. If you have any questions, please visit www.votemadera.com or the Madera County Elections Department. This forum will be in two parts. We will start with the candidates for district attorney. We will end up promptly at 6:50 p.m. and begin the next part of the program. The second part of the forum will be the Madera City Council candidates. We will begin in 90 seconds opening statements. We have a panel who will pose the questions. There are Chuck Down, Madera Tribune, Annette Kwok, Madera Chamber of Commerce, and Madera Youth Leaders. The panelists will each ask one of their own prepared questions, and they will move on to questions from the audience. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer the question unless the panel predetermines that more time is needed for a response from each of the candidates. Members of the audience are asked to write out their questions and hand them to the ushers. They will be given to the panel. We will take as many questions from the audience as time allows. Questions will be screened for duplication and personal questions. No personal questions directed to just one candidate will be asked. We will close each segment of the forum with the candidates give a 90-second closing statement about their qualifications for the office for which he or she is running.
Prior to beginning, candidates drew numbers to determine the orders in which they give statements and answer questions to be asked fair to each of them. Our timekeeper is Tony Jordan with the Chamber of Commerce, and she will signal to the candidate when his or her time is up. Paper and pencils are left on your chairs when you came in for you to submit your questions to the panels to answer to the candidates. Please hand them back to one of the young ushers. If you need paper and pencil, please ask the ushers. Please make sure that your question is directed to all the candidates and not just an individual candidate.
We will now begin with the forum for Madera County District Attorney.
Just a couple of quick notes. Cell phones. Everybody check your cell phones, please, and put them on silent. We've been asked to live stream this, but because of the time in which we were asked, we are not allowing that because did not give us time to communicate with the candidates. I have had people ask if they can videotape it. Yes, you can. So on that note, we'd like to get started. And both candidates drew numbers, and I would like to ask candidate Sally Moreno to please begin with the opening statements. You will get a 50-second warning to let you know you have 15 seconds to wrap up, and then a stop for close. Okay? Thank you. You can share the microphone.
Good evening. I'd like to start by thanking everyone for coming and thanking the Chamber of Commerce and Madera Tribune and the Coalition for Community Justice for hosting this event. It's a great opportunity for us to showcase who we are and what our plans are for Madera, and why it is, for me personally, that I think I'm the best candidate for district attorney. So I'll start with just a little bit about myself. I was born and raised right here in the Valley. In my 20s, I was a military veteran. I'm a decorated Desert Storm veteran and a police officer in Los Angeles. Those jobs led me to understand that while I was called to justice, really I was called to be a prosecutor. Thereafter, I returned and went to law school right here in Fresno with the intention of being a prosecutor, and I've been a prosecutor off and on ever since 1996. That's over 20 years I've been keeping my valley safe, keeping my community safe, and sending serious and violent felons to prison. During that time, I've also had the opportunity to develop the judgment to see that not everybody needs to go to prison. And that's why I've participated in developing programs like our behavioral health court, where we take people who have a diagnosed serious mental illness, and before we just lock them up and throw away the key, we see if, without compromising safety, we can put those people back together. Those are the kinds of ideas, that's the tip of the iceberg of the ideas that I have for keeping my community safe. Work hard to send violent felons to prison, and work hard to keep my community safe. Thank you so much, and I look forward to sharing more of my ideas with you throughout the forum.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Paul Hornick. I am here to ask for your vote and ask to become your new district attorney. A little bit about me. I am married. My wife Amber is here in the audience. I am currently working for you as a senior deputy district attorney here in Madera County. And in that capacity, I handle everything from traffic tickets to murder cases. I'm a licensed attorney since 2005. I'm licensed to practice both in Florida and California, and I've worked in both states as prosecutors. At the age of 31, I felt a calling to join the United States Army, and so I did. I went to basic training and officer candidate school at Fort Benning, Georgia. I was commissioned as a second lieutenant, and I spent 4 years on active duty serving our nation, holding various jobs, most notably that of platoon leader. I continue to serve in the United States Military Reserve as a JAG officer, and I was recently promoted to the rank of major. I'm endorsed by 4 major law enforcement agencies here in Madera County: the Madera and Chowchilla Police Officers Association, the Department of Corrections Officers Association for Madera County, and the Madera Prosecutors Association. I've worked hard throughout this campaign to meet as many people as I can. I've gone door to door and met over 4,000 people. I've spent over $60,000 of my own funds on this race. This is something very important to me. This is my home, and I want to make this county as safe as we can make it. My platform is very simple. It's leadership, it's professionalism, and it's actually doing the job that's supposed to be done in a way that it should be done. I will work hard, and thank you for your time.
Okay, you answer the first question. Chuck?
Technical problem here. All right. Well, good evening and thank you for being here. It's a terrific sacrifice to put yourself up for the candidacy of any office, and so I've seen plenty of elections, and I want to tell you that the voters out here appreciate it. They may not always seem like they do, but gee, if you weren't here, nobody would have anybody to vote for or not to vote for. But the district attorney in a city like Madera is the most important law enforcement officer. And I'd be interested in knowing what each candidate would do to make sure that this is a safe county. Would you, as a district attorney, for example, follow the lead of the grand jury and investigate public agencies. Giving the grand jury some teeth. Would you, as a prosecutor, go after the kind of criminals that just drive us all crazy? And those are the criminals that vandalize our homes. Those are the criminals that steal our cars. Those are the criminals that try to get into our homes and rob them. Quite often those crimes just get brushed off. Now, we don't want to bother with those crimes. I'm interested in knowing how you would treat the small crimes, because it's the small crimes that lead to the large crimes. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll break that down into the two parts here. The first being, would we follow or would I follow the grand jury? Should they ask us to actually investigate or do some type of work against agencies? And the plain answer is absolutely yes. If the grand jury is coming to us and asking us to look into an agency or telling us that some kind of public corruption activity is going on, I will absolutely look into it, I will absolutely follow through on it, and I will absolutely take action where I can, certainly proving a case beyond a reasonable doubt as the standard. With regards to other issues and criminals, folks that are stealing, vandalizing, actually victimizing people around the town and county, I take that stuff very seriously. You know, of the two of us, I'm the only candidate that actually represents the people of Madera County now. I go to court every day. I represent the people and actually handle these cases. And where possible, I will absolutely prosecute these individuals, and I take the matters very seriously. Thank you.
And I'm going to disagree and say, absolutely, we'll follow where the grand jury leads. I think it's important to note, I think we've all read about what's going on in the DA's office now. And Mr. Horner has just said he's been in that office. And in the time that he was there, he did not investigate that office. He did not bring those charges forward. He endured that. He sanctioned that by continuing to work in the office. When I found that I couldn't work in the office, and the office was a mess, I left, I developed my skills, and I became a better prosecutor so that I could come back. And that's why I'm back now, because I saw the corruption in the office. I'm willing to root it out, not only in the DA's office, but wherever we find it. As it relates to small crimes, I've gone to work on that too. There's nothing smaller than petty theft, and we all know currently there's a loophole with petty theft. I've worked with DAs up and down the state to put together a law that makes your third petty theft over $250 a felony to put teeth back in that. That'll be on the ballot in 2020. Not only can I will, and in fact I have. Thank you.
Test 1, 2.
Good evening. I'm here representing the Madera Coalition and the Madera Youth Leaders. And my question to you is the District Attorney Office in favor of allowing Immigration Customs Enforcement to pick up undocumented defendants in the courthouse?
That's a very challenging question, and really it turns on a matter of procedure, and that is, while as Mr. Dowd indicated, the District Attorney is the lead prosecutor in the county, what we do is we work with the sheriff and the law enforcement agencies. So when I'm explaining it to people, I say, law enforcement catches them and we clean them. What I have seen and I can support is that when we've got illegal aliens who are finished serving a sentence for a serious and violent crime, those people need to be deported and removed. What we can't tolerate is having a victim population who is afraid to report because they're afraid of being deported. So it's a tenuous balance, and it's a balance that I think our sheriff, Jay Varney, who has come out and endorsed me because of our relationship working together professionally, that he handles that balance quite well, and he maintains justice here in Madera, and it's my job to work with him to make sure that, again, dangerous and violent people are removed.
So in response to your question, my role as district attorney is to follow the law. I will follow the law and obey the law. I understand that folks feel that maybe immigration law and having ICE remove people is unpopular, but I would certainly not look to prohibit ICE from acting lawfully. It's not my position as district attorney to encourage that kind of behavior, but if ICE showed up and said, hey, we're going to go to the courthouse and look for people that are subject to removal, I wouldn't stand in their way and tell them, no, that's not my job, that's not my authority. I am a state employee or a county employee that's enforcing state law, and immigration is federal law, and I will certainly honor that and obey that distinction. Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Okay. Please describe the number of serious crimes, felonies, cases you have been led or sole prosecutor in your career.
Thank you. I've handled, thousands of cases throughout my time as a prosecutor, both in Florida and California. I've handled, every day I take a box of cases to court that weighs 50 pounds. All these matters are serious. Robberies, kidnappings, felonies, gang work, gang activity. I can't even begin to compose a list of all the serious matters that I've been involved with. Probably most notably was the George Taylor Whitson homicide, which was a conviction up in Bass Lake. More recently in December, a DUI. It was his fourth offense here in the Ranchos. The person was convicted, sentenced to 10 years for felony DUI with crash with an injury. I can't tell you how important it is to be able to work in a job where I can protect my community that I live in, and I'm very honored to do so. And as a district attorney, I will continue to carry cases and actually do the job that I'm being hired to do if elected. Thank you.
Can I ask you to reread the question for me, please?
Please describe the number of serious crimes, felony cases you have been led or sole prosecutor in your career.
I'm going to take that to mean tried to a jury, because we've all handled thousands of cases. Everybody drags a box. If you're a prosecutor, you drag a box of cases to court every day, and you drag that same box back, and it's full of things that you continue. But if we're going to talk about jury trials, I've tried scores of serious and violent cases myself. I've tried murderers, I've tried manslaughters, I've tried DUI murders most recently. One year when I was prosecuting child sexual assault here in Madera County, I sent 7 child sex offenders for life terms by jury trial. And that's what I do. When we have cases, I work with law enforcement. I'm very proud to say the deputy sheriffs have endorsed me, and Sheriff Jay Barney himself has endorsed me, because they know I build good cases with them, and we go to trial. We send bad guys to prison, and I'm not afraid to go to trial. And the fact that I can go to trial means that when I do plea bargain cases, my word has meaning. People know. If I say, if you don't want the deal, we'll go to trial, that's what I'll do. They know me, and they know that's my deal.
I beg your pardon, I wasn't ready. Have either of you, in your careers as prosecutors, come up against a case that you've lost, and yet you know you should have won it? The jury has skunked you, or a witness that you thought was going to do the right thing and didn't? Have you ever come up against a case like that, and how have you handled that? What changes have you made to fix that? Just in your career as a district attorney, what's it like being there every day and sometimes losing?
I've absolutely lost cases, and for the most part they were cases when I was a brand new prosecutor in the late 90s and the early 2000s. and they were misdemeanor cases, which, while they're not unimportant, are less significant than our serious and violent felons. And I've looked at those cases, and it's frustrating, and you wish that you could blame somebody else, but ultimately, you know, even if you're going to say it was one bad juror, well, who picked that juror? I did. And I have learned in the 20 years I've been a prosecutor, I've learned how to look at people, how to ask the right questions, how to know who my jurors are, so that I'm talking to and I'm teaching an audience that I picked, my jurors, about the case that I know better than anyone else in the courtroom. So every time I've done that, I've become a better prosecutor for it. And those experiences and opportunities are the things that make me the excellent prosecutor I am today.
Yeah, I don't think there's a trial lawyer, certainly a prosecutor, that hasn't felt that horrible sting of defeat. And it is horrible, especially when you know the person's guilty and you just got cheated, or you lost a case you should have won. I lost a case where the jury just didn't believe the scientific value of a drug dog, being able to detect narcotics in the air. And what I learned from that is pick better juries. You really got to get out there and actually explore your jury panel and make sure that people that you're putting on your case are going to be thoughtful and use the evidence and actually follow the law. And that takes me to my next point here, which involves appeals. It's so important to do thorough trial work to avoid appeals. We recently saw a huge case come back, the Waterman-Jackson case, where the woman, the female co-defendant, is actually out of prison now, currently out in our community, and it looks like the male will also be out because of the way the case was charged. And that was one of my opponent's cases that she showcased. So again, it's important to try cases, but it's important to do a thorough, good job. Thank you.
If elected, where do you see yourself and the department in 5 years? What changes would you make to get there?
That's you, Mr.
In 5 years, I would like to see a completely different district attorney's office. I would like to see a paperless system of filing where we're actually receiving files from agencies, not just simply reacting to huge pieces of paper, but actually being able to file them and save money. We spend so much money on paper and toner. I'd like to see a new leadership structure. We currently have really no leadership in the DA's office. I'd like to have small teams of lawyers composed of 3 to 5 people with a supervisor over each. And that supervisor would be responsible for actually working with each one of the various police departments throughout our county. There'd be one supervisor for Chowchilla, one for MPD, one for the sheriff's office, etc. And they would be responsible for answering calls, and they would also take the rejected files that we don't file and explain to the deputies and the officers why they are not being filed. There's no way for us to expect our officers to get better if we don't teach them why what they're doing is wrong. Thank you.
I think in 5 years, we have a lot of great lawyers in the office currently. What I'd like to see is those lawyers that are in the office, instead of having a dearth of leadership and running amok and not being able to trust administration, I'd like to see those lawyers learn that they can trust administration, that they can trust me, and that they can trust the other leaders that I either promote from within or bring in and develop. And that they can trust us not only to have their back, but to get them the resources they need to prosecute cases well. Absolutely, going paperless will be a byproduct of that. That'll be easy. Managing the big data that we'll get as our officers bring on body cameras, we'll do that too. And I've watched that happen in Fresno, and I have experience doing that. But the most important thing is that our attorneys are enabled to become the best attorneys they can be. They're good lawyers. They need somebody who guides them, mentors them, and allows them to develop into the excellent prosecutors that they can be. The rest will handle itself naturally with good leadership.
With the last 2 administrations, there was a lot of turmoil. Why would the office be different if you are elected DA?
Can I have an extra 30 seconds on this question, and the same for Mr. Hornick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Approved.
This is a difficult question to answer without sort of going into the details of prior leadership. But I can tell you that I am a trained leader, and I'm a leader who leads out of a sense of service. When I left this office in the middle of 2015, it was with a very heavy heart because I knew the leadership I was leaving it to, but unable to make a difference, unable to do my job. It was clearly very dysfunctional, and I couldn't do my job of bringing justice to my community. But I prepared then to come back and to be the leader that this office needs. My leadership skills honed not only through the military, but also through being a prosecutor and through being a law enforcement officer, a police officer in South Central Los Angeles, and have taught me how to understand people, to mentor people, and to guide people. As a prosecutor now in Fresno, I help guide their serious and violent crime unit. And those young lawyers, there are 8 of them, they come into my office on a daily basis asking for guidance, knowing that they can trust me to give them good advice. And when cases need to be dealt, when we've got cases with evidentiary problems, we'll do that. But that's the kind of leadership. And when you can develop trust between the lawyers that work for you and yourself, that's when the team becomes greater than the sum of its parts. And that's the kind of leadership that I intend to bring to the office. And this team will function well. Thank you.
Can you read that question again for me, please?
With the last 2 administrations, there was a lot of turmoil. Why would the office be different if you were elected DA?
Thank you. Well, first, I'm actually there doing the work now. I understand what our office is facing. I understand the problems in the office. And again, of the 2 candidates, I'm the only one that's actually currently serving the people here in Madera County now. Beyond that, I am actually endorsed. I'm endorsed by my peers that I work with in the office. The prosecutors in our office have endorsed me over Ms. Marino, and they had 2 opportunities to endorse Ms. Marino and passed both times. We have seen her leadership, we have seen what she brought, and when times were tough, she left. She left us here, and she knew what Mr. Lin was about, and she was part of the prior regime under Mr. Keats, which was an absolute disaster. She knew what she was leading us, she didn't care, she left to take greener pastures. That's not what a leader does, and that's not what I will do for you. If I'm elected, I will work hard every day. I will bring my A game every day, and we will be an office that moves forward, not backwards. Thank you.
Crime prevention is an important job of any
Thank you. I'm so glad you asked this question. I was just speaking with the VFW Post Commander, Mr. DeCesar, about this very issue. This is so important, and my personal perspective is the DA has really another obligation, another role in the community, and that's to go out and educate people that live here. I will go around and give presentations to the various elderly communities in our community here, including the VFW, and really anywhere that would like to see me. I recently canvassed a mobile park that was largely composed of some seniors, and these folks are absolutely ripe for being taken advantage of. I've seen it myself. They often get embarrassed and do not want to actually report. And I will actually go out and give presentations on the types of scams that they're facing, the types of things that are happening theft-wise and abuse-wise, and as well to our first responders, because many times sheriff's deputies and officers, they come on a scene, they're seeing these elderly folks in an abused state, they need to know what to look for. So I will absolutely go out and try to provide education through training and make it a part of my administration. Thank you.
I'd like to echo what Mr. Horning said, because you're right, elder abuse is a scourge on our society. And these people are sometimes embarrassed and ashamed. And working with our detectives and our law enforcement agencies, most if not all of whom have endorsed me, it's very important to be able to explain to them these aren't sort of detail-oriented cases. These are cases where they need to do a little more follow-up. They have to get bank records. They have to get other items. I'm going to assume that law enforcement's going to handle that when they tell us to do that.
Not the stage for the DA's side.
You want to pause? Dr. Pollard?
Just a reminder about the break. We start with half questions for the game. We have about 10 more minutes. We score about 10 more minutes.
There's about 10 more minutes for this forum
For this forum, for the district attorney,
for the
10
VA.
more minutes.
About 10 minutes, and then we're going to move on to city council.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so-
Let's start you over from the beginning.
All right.
Let's start over, please.
So absolutely, elder abuse is a scourge, and working with law enforcement is critical. And that's why I'm really glad to have the endorsement of the DSA, the Deputy Sheriff's Association, and your Sheriff Jay Varney. Jay is the one who leads the charge in this county in terms of what we focus on. And other senior leaders in all of law enforcement also. If you know those people and are aware of them, I would ask you to talk to them about who they know and who they know is going to work to keep our community safe. Not just our elders, but everybody in the community.
Have you thought of programs to help rehabilitate convicts instead of sentencing as much time as possible?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. And in fact, it starts with some other things. It starts with sorting through the people who come in contact with criminal justice. And that's where, as I mentioned, I helped found our behavioral health court, where we look at people, and that focuses on people with behavioral health or mental illness who get embroiled in our system that shouldn't be involved there, and we try to get them out. The next thing that came from that is our Veterans Court. And I understand that that's working here in Fresno. I sit on the Veterans Court in Fresno, and I understand that here in Madera it's broken and it needs fixing. One of the things that helps our veterans get out is the fact that they have a mentor who can help them and who understands what they've been through. And we also need to work at things like getting ahead of it. So what I call getting upstream. Right now you can predict the number of prisons you need by the number of fourth graders who aren't reading on grade level. So we need to get that fixed. And there are some programs here headed by probation, which I would definitely join in. We're at Bigs in Blue, where we mentor young people and try to keep them out of trouble.
Hey, thank you. Absolutely. We currently have some great kind of option courts for people to move into to actually work on sobriety and other things. We have a drug court here in Madera, which actually does a pretty fantastic job getting people to actually acknowledge their addiction and begin to take steps for sobriety. And at the end of that program, typically they will get a dismissal. And we have a very robust behavioral health program that's managed by a fantastic judge, Dale Blay. I have the distinct honor of appearing in front of him almost daily. And we also have a Veterans Court, which Mr. Lynn actually started. And for all Mr. Lynn's faults, it's actually a very good program. It's something I would continue. People that serve should be able to have a second option here when things happen. And continuing with Veterans Court is something I would absolutely do. Thank you.
If a Brown Act violation by a local elected official or entity was reported to you, are you willing to investigate the matter and prosecute if the facts support the violation?
Absolutely. And, to go back and actually speak about a point that happened earlier about my role as a public corruption prosecutor and not wanting to prosecute. I can't tell you how false that is, but that's not uncommon for my opponent to say things that are not true about me. But if I had evidence that there was actually something going on that was wrong, or needed to be investigated, or needed to be prosecuted, I cannot tell you how much more certain I would be to prosecute it. I've had certain limitations. I think you can imagine running against your boss from inside the office brings those. Mr. Lynn's ability to allow me to move forward on many of these things has really been non-existent or curtailed. And as the district attorney, I would certainly move forward on those items. I would not stand for anybody who's actually violating the law, breaking our laws of our county, or victimizing people. I can assure you, as your district attorney, I will move forward on those matters and prosecute them as they should be. Thank you.
If what Mr. Hornick is telling us is that when he was in the DA's office working for Mr. Lynn, he didn't see what everybody else saw and what we all read about in that report, then I think we have some other problems. If he did see it and didn't do anything about it, we have problems there too. I saw it. It didn't happen to me. You don't have to know me very long to know that people don't harass me. My hand ends up in their face, and then they don't harass other people around me. I don't tolerate other people being bullied either. So I didn't see any of that happening. I just realized the office was in chaos. I was unable to do my job and keep the community safe. So I left with the intention of coming back and keeping the community safe. I'm absolutely against any kind of corruption, Brown Act or other corruption. I've actually worked with some Madera Oversight Coalition people and some other people who have talked to me about things that they really want to investigate once I get into office. And I'm concerned about that. Madera's 125th anniversary, they talk about how they cheated their way out of Fresno County. I think that's scandalous. We should be doing things the right way. We should be doing things properly, and I'll help get that done. Oh, next question. Okay, hit me.
Will your religious beliefs make a difference in your decisions?
Absolutely. I'm a faithful Christian, and I think the most important things that I believe are things that as a society we all believe. We need to treat each other well, but really the fundamental thing that I believe that has driven me to do this is that my job is to serve my community. I see myself as a servant leader, and I intend to come in to the office and work with the lawyers who are there, and just like I heard from the pulpit last week, be the biggest server in the office. That's how you be the best leader, is to serve the most people, to get the most people the resources they need to do their job, to listen compassionately to their problems, and to go powerfully after the people who are victimizing people in my community. I defend the defenseless, and I work for justice. And all of those come out of the fundamentals of who I am, and that includes my Christianity.
Absolutely. I am a Christian, and I believe in the tenets of Jesus Christ and our Lord, and that's the inner philosophy that guides me really on a daily basis. And I will absolutely use that moving forward in this role if elected. I do agree with one thing Ms. Moreno said, and that's the district attorney is a leader who is also a servant. And if I'm fortunate enough to win this election and be in that position, I will keep it close to my heart that I'll be working in a capacity that really serves everybody here. And I think that's super important and really should not be underemphasized. We as a community have a lot of challenges ahead of us. And having a district attorney in office that will actually listen to folks, move forward on those issues, help be present and accountable in the community, serve people from a humble place, I think is vitally important, and that's who I'll be.
If you're elected, will you have a mission statement posted in your department? And if so, what might it say?
Absolutely. And I think it'd say something along the lines of, we are here to seek, serve, and do justice. That's ultimately what it means to be a prosecutor. And I can't think of a better profession to be part of. Every day that I get up, I feel blessed that I'm able to put on a suit and go to work and actually represent the people of this county on very serious crimes. And even the non-serious crimes, you know, I think we lose sight that, you know, hey, it's a petty theft, or oh, it's a little vandalism. But there's a victim there, and there's somebody whose property was damaged, or somebody who was hurt, or somebody had something stolen. And I try to be very mindful of that as well when I'm in court, actually trying to dispense justice to the best of my ability. Seek, serve, and do justice. I think those words are really the best summary of what it is to be a prosecutor, and that's what I use.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. That's a great question. And it's something that I'd like to discuss with the members of my office as we coalesce as a team. We are obviously responsible for doing justice, but it seems to me that sometimes we lose our focus on the victims of crime. You know, every day in every case, the defendant is there in court. And the victims, even though they do their best, you know, hopefully they have jobs. They're moving on with their lives, and it's harder for them to be present. And sometimes I think our system takes more account of defendants than they do of the victims of crime. And those are the people that I'm very proud to represent. Whether they be you know, family members, whether they be strangers on the street, or even whether they be animals. You know, people abuse and victimize all kinds of people in our community, and they all need to be defended. But a mission statement is something that I think we should develop as an office and come together, and we should pass it through each other and hand it back and forth, and so that everybody in the office that way can take ownership of what goes on the wall. And as a team, we move forward and achieve that goal together.
Law enforcement works with dedication to make arrests. Please talk about how you would conduct your relationships with local law enforcement to support their efforts.
Well, that's a great question and a very important question. And again, it's one of the reasons I'm very glad to have the endorsement of the Deputy Sheriff and Sheriff Jay Barney. And again, talking to leaders in the other law enforcement agencies, if you have that opportunity, I'd love to have you ask them what they think. One of the things that happens often when officers are making an arrest is there'll be someone who resists. And it's resisting arrest, it's Penal Code 148. And when I'm a prosecutor, 148s have always been very significant crimes, even though it's a misdemeanor, because that's disrespecting that officer. And I have heard, and I know that currently in Madera, those charges are not respected by any of the officers or any of the prosecutors. They're dismissed, they're thrown in for other reasons. But that's an important charge. And those, not only do they protect our officers from civil liability, but they protect the dignity of our officers doing that hard job for us every day, keeping us safe.
Thank you. So I will actually move forward having the best relationships I possibly can with law enforcement. In fact, I would look to build on what I've already built, and that's why I've been endorsed by 4 of the major law enforcement officers or associations here in Madera County. And my endorsements from Madera Police, Chowchilla Police, Madera Department of Corrections, and the prosecutors, I think it's important to know we're all membership at large votes, which means all of the members got to vote on whether to endorse me or Ms. Moreno, and they picked me to take over this office. The Deputy Sheriff's Association that we keep hearing about is really a phony endorsement, folks. It was 5 guys sitting on a poker table that decided to give her a badge to put on her signs. That's not an endorsement. The sheriff refused to even meet with me
Mr. Hornick?
for issuing an endorsement.
Well, I appreciate your endorsements. I asked the question to please talk about what your relationship in representing and dealing with the local law enforcement agents would be within the department.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent here. I will do all I can to make it a positive working relationship and really build on what I already have. I have great relationships. I will look to do quarterly ride-alongs to continue to see what these officers do, and I'll put incentives in place so my coworkers and my opponents, I'm sorry, I see that I'm out of time. So, thank you.
I apologize, but we are representing the audience with their questions, so I make sure that if they put the time forward to ask those questions, that we are getting those answers. So it's time for closing statements, and so Mrs. Moreno, you start with closing statements, and Mr. Hornick, you will be the second to go with closing statements.
Thank you. And again, thank you all. You've been very attentive even through our little interlude there in the middle with the alarm. I hope you've seen a little bit about who I am. I'm a positive person. I have positive ideas for Madera. I've worked with Madera Police Department developing a brand new program to deal with human trafficking. The officers came to me, even when I was working in Fresno, because they know who I am. That OLIVE program pulls women out of being trafficked and develops the resources that they need. It's a very complex problem to move them forward. And that's an excellent organization, and it's being looked at now up and down the state. So Mr. Hornick talks about he wants to run a normal office, he wants to come in on time, and he'll work hard. I see more for Madera. Madera can be an excellent office. Madera has great players in so many places except for the district attorney's office. And we can be a trendsetter and a net exporter of not good, but great criminal justice ideas. That's what I do. I build coalitions of people, we look for the best ideas, and we promote those ideas. That's what's going to make Madera County more safe. And again, I'm a positive person. I have a lot of things that I've done and a lot of things that I can talk about. I think it's notable that Mr. Hornick tends to talk about me and tends to be negative about me. I'm very proud again. Thank you again for being here, and I'd like to thank my family, my husband and my 2 younger children who are here. One's videotaping today. We live and work in this community. Please let me come home and be your district attorney and keep you safe. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. So this election is really a hiring decision. And when making a hiring decision, I think it's important to use criteria. And I recommend using the 3 C's. And that's character, competence, and chemistry. And I submit to you, when you look at both me and my opponent under this criteria, that I am the superior choice and the best candidate for this job. Character-wise, I've demonstrated it throughout my life. Not only through my military service, but actually my work here in Madera County. I've stayed and worked through the hard times. I've worked under a person who was very difficult to work for. I hear about Madera deserves more. What Ms. Moreno is looking for is a redo. There is no redo in leadership. There is no redo in life. She made a hard choice to leave our office and go on to other things. We're happy that she did that. We do not want her back. Competence. I'm telling you folks, I've demonstrated competence throughout my entire life. I've passed 2 bar exams. I've taken on difficult cases both here in Florida and California. And I'm currently slated to start an attempted murder case here in October. I have chemistry demonstrated through my endorsements. I am endorsed by every major law enforcement but for the Sheriff's Association. And again, that was not association, that was not even an endorsement up for grabs when I entered this race. I represent a new beginning for the District Attorney's Office. I will move this office forward. I will start a new chapter for Madera. We can leave the 2 terrible administrations we've been dealing with behind and start new. I ask that you join me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hornick and Mrs. Moreno. Thank you, audience, for submitting some great questions. We will actually start the next forum in about 8 minutes.